In this lesson, we're going to talk about market economies versus centrally planned economies. What is a market economy? A market economy is one in where firms and households are interacting with each other, they're making their own decisions in order to allocate economic resources. Now, what's happening when they interact with each other and make decisions is that from these decisions, they're gleaning signals and information, and they're using those choices as well as the repercussions from those choices to make future decisions. So this then leads to innovation. Because of that, individuals that live in countries with market economies tend to have higher standards of living as well as higher incomes. And there also tends to be more competition among firms. And that's because individuals are free to choose what goods and services to buy and who to buy those goods and services from. So firms need to compete with each other to produce the highest quality goods possible at the lowest cost, because that's what consumers are looking for. So again, this tends to lead to innovation. So in these types of economies, the government does not interfere with these decisions or interactions. Again, everyone can decide who they're going to trade with, who they're going to buy from, who they're going to sell to, without any interference from the government. And so these tend to be democratic nations. List some examples of market economies. Singapore is a market economy, as well as New Zealand, Australia, Switzerland, and Ireland. These countries tend to be listed among the most economically free countries on the Economic Freedom Index kept by the Heritage Foundation. What is a centrally planned economy? A centrally planned economy is one in where the government is the entity deciding how economic resources will be allocated. So individuals aren't free to make their own decisions about who to buy from or who to sell to. Because of this, signals and information regarding consumer preferences that are normally available when producers and consumers are allowed to interact freely with each other are no longer available. As a result, there's less innovation, and so firms in these types of environments have a hard time producing low-cost, high-quality goods and services. Instead, they end up with goods and services that are pretty expensive and pretty low quality. So they tend to be quite inefficient, and they're producing goods and services that many consumers don't even want. As a result, individuals living in countries where there is a centrally planned economy tend to have a lower standard of living, and these also tend to be characterized by political dictatorships. List some examples of centrally planned economies. Again, the Heritage Foundation keeps the Economic Freedom Index, and some of the least economically free countries are the former Soviet Union, North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, and Eritrea. Again, these are all countries characterized by limited choice and political dictatorships. So they tend to be less efficient in terms of producing high-quality, low-cost goods and services. What is a mixed economy? A mixed economy is one that has some aspects of a market economy, but sometimes the government plays a role in the allocation of certain economic resources. Some examples of these are the United States, which some characterized as a market economy, but is increasingly becoming more of a mixed economy. Also, Canada is a mixed economy, Japan is a mixed economy, as well as Germany and Colombia. Now, these are all countries that have many aspects of market economies, but also the government plays a role in some of the allocation of economic and resources, whether that be healthcare, whether that be transportation, and other public goods. In case you're interested in how countries rank in terms of economic freedom, you can go to theheritage.org and look at their index of economic freedom. So we'll just look at a few countries here. The most free countries are Singapore, Hong Kong, New Zealand, Australia, Switzerland, and Ireland. If we actually click on Hong Kong, what you'll see is that it does have a high economic freedom score. However, you see here that it's decreased by 1.1 points, due primarily to a decline in investment score freedom. And so what's happening here is that the ongoing political and social turmoil has begun to erode its reputation as one of the best locations from which to do business, dampening investment inflows. And so there have been risks to Hong Kong's economic freedom, which has lowered its score. But at the moment, it still has a pretty high economic freedom rating. Countries that are mostly free are going to be the United Kingdom, Denmark, Canada, Estonia. We see the United States ranked at 17. That has decreased a bit in terms of the Economic Freedom Index. We can scroll down a bit to look at moderately free countries. And we talked about the former Soviet Union as being a centrally planned economy. You actually see Russia here as number 94 on the Economic Freedom Index. And so they're not very far away from being mostly unfree, where the scores are from 59.9 to 50. Russia right now has a score of 61. So again, there's going to be a lot of government interventions in these countries that have the lower rankings, and even lower rankings that get them to mostly unfree status. You can see that there are even repressed countries, and you can see that most of these are in some state of civil war or have other political and economic problems. The countries at the very bottom are going to be Republic of Congo, Eritrea, Cuba, Venezuela, and North Korea. And then you also see countries that are not ranked. This means that there isn't data available for these countries. It may just be that they don't report the data, or it could be that they're in some state of war where it's not possible to get the data at the moment. So again, every year the Heritage Foundation releases the Economic Freedom Index, so feel free to look at it and kind of look at countries that are of interest to you.